Okay, so this now would be the review of the Meze 99 Neo. But at the same time, I'm also going to release my review of the Meze 99 Classics. And in case you are interested in both of them, or if you just want to know a little bit more about those headphones in general, I would recommend you to watch the 99 Classics review first, because there I will get into a little bit more of some things like subjectivity, objectivity, and why I try to stay a little bit more neutral but still give you my subjective feel, so you can kind of get better a feel of what these actually can do and what they do out of the box. So like I said, watch that one first, and I will also make a comparison between the two just to get a little bit more into the minor differences, because there are a few ones that you should definitely be aware of, and that should help you to decide which ones are the right ones for you. But otherwise, I would say let's get into the packaging and what we get. We get here this carrying case, which is a little bit different compared to the Neos, as you can see here, maybe to keep costs down, because what I actually wasn't aware of when I got them, I think they were both at $309, but now the Neos are actually down to $250. But otherwise, the packaging is almost the same, because what we get here is the headphone jack adapter as well as the airplane adapter, but we get only one cable, the 1.4 meter long, kind of more for mobile use cable, as you can see here. It's still the same super quality, so this braided cable, which is very soft though, very high quality, doesn't tangle up, which is actually super nice also to see on the rubberized part, because the rubberized part for some reason doesn't tangle. We have here the remote, and the splitter is really nice, as you can see. Top. I really like the cable. I would wish for more of these cables in the future, because usually braided cables are very stiff and people say they kind of break and so on, but this one feels absolutely high quality. Why the longer one isn't included here as well, I am not 100% sure. In terms of design, they look pretty much the same. If you want to see a direct comparison, you can check the comparison itself. As you can see, of course, Neo 99, this would be the right way. They look pretty much the same, but here we have a little bit of a different finish, so no wood. Maybe that also keeps the cost down, I don't know. Then we have the silver accents. The rest is also pretty much the same, so the padding, which actually feels a little bit thinner to me, but that could be just in my head. The rest is still sturdy though, because it feels high quality, no imperfections in terms of that. They also have the wiggle room, they feel sturdy. You can maybe not fold them up or anything like that, but definitely a nice construction, especially with the elastic band that I will get into a little bit later on. Now the ear cups, they actually feel a little, just a tiny little bit different compared to what the classics feel like, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit more in the comparison, but I'm not 100% sure that these are the same. I think they are not, because what they have in common is the cutout. On both, big enough to be a 100% over ear, so your ears won't touch anywhere. It's also pretty much thick enough, even though on these ones compared to the classics, my ear actually did touch on the right side, which is a common thing for many headphones for me. Some people maybe have the same issue, but it wasn't the case on the classics for some reason. But otherwise, still very soft, nice memory foam. And that's why I would say let's get into the comfort here. And it is, not to any surprise, very, very similar to the classics, because also this spring-loaded mechanism is absolutely top, because you put them on and they sit pretty much just right. To me, actually, the spring mechanism here, at least on my unit, on the Neos, feels a little bit more loose, which is actually a good thing, because on the classics I said that if I spasm a little bit, they try to tend to get into a little bit more of a tighter position, which is here not the case. So these feel even a little bit more loose, but the good thing is they adjust themselves on the head. There is pretty much no clamping force, at least not a negative one, on your ears, so they feel very easy. They don't feel quite as lightweight as the classics, because you have more weight emphasizing on the ear cups instead of the headband, just because of the spring mechanism being a little bit different. But that could just be because of different units also. But otherwise, like I said, my ear touches a little bit inside on the right one, which I have on a lot of headphones, not on the classics for some reason, but this doesn't change the fact, if you don't usually have this issue, that these are super comfortable. And which one I would prefer, I will let you know in my comparison, but I have to just say the same things. No pressure, super lightweight feel, very tight or right fit, because never it feels like too tight, never it feels like too loose. They sit right, they don't move. Comfortable, just great. Now, isolation is pretty much the same. I hear myself a little bit muffled, like it's usually the case with closed ones with leather ear cups, and the rest just like on the classics. What I have to mention though is that with the fact of being leather, your ears will get a little bit warm, but I think there is still enough space between your ear and the actual driver or the inside of the ear cup, so it doesn't feel like you would sweat too early. So it wasn't really an issue for me, but that's kind of something you have to decide on your own. Now, I would say let's get to the sound now, and the same as on the classics, I'm gonna show you what I did just to make the sound fit better to my personal sound signature preference. So it is the same as you can see here, equalizer. I did not really found it necessary to change anything from the classics, but what I did, and I will get into the qualities of the drivers and the sound signature themselves, but this is what I wanted to do, just so you know what we are talking about. So I took off a little bit of the bass to make it a little bit thinner, but not really thin in that way because it's just still very harmonic. I put on a little bit of the mids here just to push the vocals a little bit more up front, which is just something I prefer, and I wanted a little bit more of a lighter feel with a little bit more clarity in the highs. But this is my subjective part, and I will get into why that is the case in terms of the signature, because out of the box, and I've said this already in the classics review, when I put them on the first time, they sounded absolutely magnificent because they sound so warm, nice, but also let's say super balanced. So really great in terms of a full rich sound, warm but very, very well rounded. I tried the same here as well, and then, as I said on the classics as well, I tried them with other headphones that I usually prefer, and then I had to notice one thing. The sound signature actually isn't what I usually prefer, because they emphasize a little bit more on the bass, a little bit less on the mids and highs, and therefore the sound is, I would say, like thicker and not as neutral as I prefer it to be. But that's why I used the equalizer, and this is just something I wanna keep more clear from now on. Usually, I always say I don't like to use equalizers because I want to review the headphone and not my sound signature that I prefer. And that's why I'm going to try to give you both sides of the coin so you know what I prefer, but what it is out of the box and what it is good for. Because let's actually get to that. What are they like, or what are they good for out of the box? I would say they are still, as the 99 Classics, absolutely top for NFL electronic, because they have this amazing bass, and it is this high quality driver that gives you this tight bass, precise, detailed bass that also can actually bounce a little bit on your ears, which gives you this amazing feel for electronic music. Now, the mids, like I said, are not that emphasized, but they are on its own high quality wise, detailed and so on, same as the highs, but those are actually quite soft. And this is what just makes them not quite so suited out of the box for my music listening preference, where I listen to, for example, a lot of alternative rock, metal, and all these kinds of things. If though, what I also do, like to listen to dubstep or other things like trap music and so on, I don't need to change anything, then they are out of the box great, because especially for pop music, anything mainstream, they are sounded actually pretty much perfectly, very well balanced, round and super nice because of the slight V shape as I would like to see it. But, and this is the big crux on cheaper headphones or quality or less quality headphones that just don't have the drivers with the potential, you can achieve what you can achieve with those. Because as you have seen, I took down bass. Did they sound therefore weak or thin? Not at all. They do sound a little bit thinner, just a little bit thinner in terms of the mids. Or I mean actually a little bit more mids because they emphasize them a little bit, but therefore in the upper, or I mean in the lower bass, they sound a little bit thinner. Just a tad little bit, not enough to make any real difference. But they don't sound thin, like I said. If you bump up the mids, the vocals get a little bit more up front, because what they are out of the box are pretty much on a line with the instruments. People like this though a lot. I prefer vocals to stand out a little bit more for my music taste. And then the highs are very, very soft, which allows for hours and hours of music listening experience, which is absolutely great. But on the cheap ones, you just can't do this, because I can't just take any cheap headphone and get the same result with here. Because if I would try to adjust them the way, like just say, let's take off bass or get the bass on that level, let's push the highs, let's push the mids, whatever you have to do on these kind of headphones and get the same results. No, it's not that easy, because then at some point you will just notice maybe the clarity or the details aren't there in the mids or in the highs. The bass just isn't nearly anywhere as pumping, as detailed, as punchy, as precise. So just to kind of narrow it down a little bit quicker, as I did on my classics review, you can get them to work with whatever you want. out of the box electronic, pop music, mainstream music. Absolutely done right, and most people will prefer it this way. For people who want something a little bit more neutral, who want a little bit more emphasis maybe on the mids and the highs, maybe less on the bass, who want something more for metal, also maybe something for classic music, if you take yourself the time to adjust it a little bit more, and I just did this really quick without any fine tuning on my equalizer setting, and I got the sound that is just right the way I want it to. It is not neutral. I don't want it neutral, because if I would try to get them neutral, I think they would lose their kind of still own signature, because they still have that with that amazing bass. And I would definitely say, to get to almost a summary, that the bass is here the highlight, because let's actually get already to the summary. They are priced at $250, which is actually weird, because I thought $310 when I got them, same as the classics. So now they are cheaper, but they don't really feel cheaper. Of course, you don't get the wood finish anymore, you get this plastic finish, but it feels just as well executed. It just does maybe feel as premium, but the rest is pretty much identical. So the headband, everything, the finish, the quality of the build is just there. So you don't lose out on that. You lose out on the longer cable. That's it. But you get pretty much the same amazing lightweight feel, super comfort, super fit. And I would say sound-wise, it doesn't feel weak or anything. It just sounds a tad little bit different. I will get into that in the comparison. But if you want to save $60, I don't see a reason why you should not. And maybe the slight little differences in terms of the signature of the sound and the other things are so minimal, for at least for you, not even a thing at all, that you just could, without any issues, go for the cheaper one. So it really depends on your preference. If you want the wood feel or the wood design, if you want the slightly little difference of signature, which in my opinion is negligible. So I can recommend them just as well as the one. These maybe a little bit more just because they are cheaper, they offer the better value, and you don't really lose out on anything, which is great. And like I said, even though they might not be my first choice out of the box, I can get them to sound like what I want them to. So absolutely top. And this is kind of where I want to leave it, and the rest I will cover in the comparison later on, which I think I will maybe release at the same time. I'm not quite sure. But otherwise, that's it. Until next time, bye.